If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of 3. Join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth and postnatal recovery, helping you have a wonderful pregnancy and afterbirth experience. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Well, hello there. It's great to have you here for another episode of the FitNest Mama podcast. Today, I am chatting with a lovely FitNest Mama member, Colleen, who is based in America and is a mum of 4 lovely children. So Colleen shares her beautiful birth story in this episode. She chats about the decision to try for a 4th baby, how she found it different in terms of having a bigger age gap between her 3rd and 4th. And she talks through some strategies that really helped her during her vaginal birth and ways also that her birth partner, her husband, helped her too. So every few weeks on the FitNest Mama podcast, we have a birth story from one of the lovely FitNest Mama members, and we do hear a range of everyday mums who have experienced a range of different types of births. And I trust you're going to enjoy this episode today and stick around because Colleen does have some great advice for pregnant or new mums listening today. So before we do dive into this episode, I would love to invite you to join FitNest Mama with a free trial. So if you have found you're not exercising as much as you'd like to during pregnancy or after having a baby, perhaps you're busy, or you've lost the motivation to exercise, or you're not sure how to best be looking after your body. Perhaps you've got pelvic girdle pain, abdominal muscle separation, and you're not sure about the best exercises for you. Or you'd like to get back into running after birth and you want to really help to boost your after-birth recovery. Then FitNest Mama is for you. Join us for these convenient, short, easy, quality workouts that you can do from home. Just head to fitnessmama.com for a free trial, and the link is in the show notes. Right, let's get into this episode. Colleen, thank you so much for joining me today on the FitNest Mama podcast, all the way from America, from Massachusetts. Is that right?
No, Minnesota. But that's
Minnesota.
Okay.
Oh, that was a good start to the good start to the podcast episode. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. So you're a lovely member inside FitNest Mama. I've seen you for one of the live workouts, haven't we? Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Otherwise,
and the recordings. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been attending, just checking out Member Hub because I know time differences do make it a challenge. So it is exciting to chat. You're a mum of 4 young children and you've got a new little baby. So could you, before I keep talking, can you give us a really little brief overview of who you are, as a mother? Like who are you?
Yeah, I come from a kind of big family, I guess. So I'm the youngest of 3, biological sisters, but the youngest of 5 for a mixed family. So I'm kind of used to a lot of chaos, I guess. But I work outside the home too. I'm a professor of economics. And so that's a dimension of my life that's affects a lot of different things. I have a husband and we've been married just to celebrate our 15-year anniversary. So that's exciting. And yeah, my husband and I were like, oh, he wanted 2 kids. I wanted 3. And then we went for 3. And then I decided when my daughter was 3 that I wasn't done having kids. So that's when I tried to convince my husband to go for the number 4, and it worked out.
Oh, amazing. So give us a brief rundown of the ages of your children.
Yeah. So my oldest is 11, almost 12, a boy, and then 8.5-year-old boy, and then a 6-year-old girl, and now a 7-month baby boy.
Amazing. So do you mind if I ask how old you are, Colleen?
Yeah, I'm 42.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of mums super interested to hear about your story because would you agree it's not the usual story, and it's so great to hear. And I totally see where you're coming from. My youngest is 4, but she's just turned 5, and I could totally go for a 4th. But I think, just turned 40. So I'm interested to hear your story. And as with always, with these birth stories, I don't know what the story is. So for anyone listening today, it's not like I pick and choose depending on the story, because I want to hear a whole range of stories. So I actually have no idea what we're in for today, which is totally exciting. So
do you think do you talk at all about just getting pregnant, or just want to talk about pregnant and birth and afterwards?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask. So considering you'd had a break and you've got a 5-year gap, I'm guessing, before you got pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
How was it different 4th time round, but also being that little bit older and having older children? Like, how was that? How was it falling pregnant? It's a big question I'm asking. So how was the process falling pregnant and then the pregnancy in itself?
Yeah. So, I definitely was uncertain about whether I'd actually be able to get pregnant because of my age and everything and the time. And something I'd wanted, but didn't exactly know. Yeah. So I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to become pregnant, I guess is the term here, but really wanted it to happen and spent a long time hoping it would happen. And then finally, when it became time to actually try to go for number 4, I was, doing the temperature things and that type of reading to understand about my cycle, and didn't happen. And so I decided, my husband and I kind of said, okay, we're going to try for this amount of time. And if it happens, that's what's meant to be. If it doesn't, then we'll just move on with our lives because of, the age gap. And so after certain months of trying, I decided to go. I hadn't really gone into the doctor. So I decided to go to the doctor and then did some diagnosis and found I had low thyroid, like hypothyroid condition, and also had some like polyps in my uterus. So got those 2 things taken care of. And then the next month of trying, it happened.
Yeah,
so it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, amazing. And did you do anything different in yourself or with what you ate or anything? Did you do anything differently this time around trying to get pregnant?
No, didn't do anything different. I guess I was in the last 2 pregnancies, I've been more into that basal body temperature approach. Yeah. So that was kind of what I did again. So, yeah. But in terms of in the pregnancies, I'm fortunate that my pregnancies have typically been really easy. So I've been really lucky about that. Yeah. So I don't really have usually much morning sickness or anything like extra conditions usually. Yeah. So
that's pretty amazing. You went to the doctor, you got your polyps and your thyroid sorted, and then the next month you were pregnant.
Yeah. And it was a little bit stressful because I knew I was kind of reaching the end of our window of trying. And so, yeah, when I was, measuring my temperature after and hopeful that it would stay elevated. And then it did, but it actually took a pregnancy test and it was negative. But then a couple of days later, it was positive. So, and actually waited a couple of days to tell my husband before I wanted to do another test.
Yeah. And how did he respond? What was his thoughts going through his head about being a dad of 4?
He was reluctant, but I think once it then happened, he within a few days was fine. But he just had a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, amazing. So how was your pregnancy 4th time round compared to the others?
Yeah, I'd say overall similar in that. Well, good thing I had been doing a lot of strength training ahead of time. So after my second, I had some back issues. And so I started doing a lot of core strength. And that was, I think, really helpful for this time. Because I had 5 years of exercise really leading up to getting pregnant. And I could definitely see that helped. I continued to exercise for probably 8 months into my pregnancy or beyond. I think we had a conversation when I was around that time. You gave me some tips. So maybe I went longer than that. I don't know. I felt lucky that I had mobility. In the past, I've had some like pubic pain, with my second, I had that, and that was really painful. And so I have gone to the chiropractor more, especially with my 3rd pregnancy. I did it often. This time I didn't feel like I needed it as much, but I did it some. So I think I didn't do as much yoga as I had done in my previous pregnancies, more strength training, I guess.
Interesting. And do you think it helped the fact that you had 3 children? Were they all at school?
They were all at school. Yeah. So I didn't have to do that much lifting. So that was good.
Yeah. I wonder if that helped too. Okay. So 4th time round, preparing for birth, did that change at all compared to the previous experiences? Did you do anything different 4th time round?
Well, I actually listened to podcasts a lot more this time around. I listened to use that as a more of an education and refresher. I felt like I didn't take like another birthing class. I thought about it, like a hypnobirthing, but I didn't. But I think the most important, most significant thing about getting ready for birth is I felt like I was reflecting a lot on my last prior birth. So my first 2 births, I used epidural, and then the 3rd I did not. But overall, that birth was I was a little bit unhinged, I would say, in that birth. I was a little bit more, I was very fatigued going into that birth. I think I thought my daughter was going to be early because my second child was early and she wasn't. So I was doing a lot of walking, a ton of walking in the 10 days leading up to her due date. And she ended up being 2 days late. And so when my birth came, I was literally just exhausted. And I think that affected how I was able to manage. And so I did a lot of reflecting on that. And I knew I wanted to be able to feel in control. And I knew I'd done, I don't know what you guys have in Australia, but like nitrous oxide, I had tried that with her. That was not a huge fan of that feeling in like terms of having the mask on my face during labor. But I thought to myself, I also didn't like being contained in the bed. So kind of made those mental notes to myself, I guess. But I pretty much expected all my other kids were almost the exact same weight. They're all like 7.5 pounds. And so I kind of expected my 4th to be the same. And it turns out it was the difference. That's kind of a surprise for me. He ended up being over 1 pound heavier. So, it was a much bigger baby. So that, some people say maybe it's because it's your 4th or something, but I think it's just his genetic makeup. He's just a big kid.
Yeah.
But I think what was different also is I'm older. So, extra ultrasounds, extra monitoring, although I did have that with my 3rd as well, because I was also, I think I was 37 at that time. So.
Okay. So in the lead up, you did a lot of reflecting. You listened to a lot of podcast episodes. And were you feeling calm in the lead up, in the, prior few days? This episode is brought to you by Baby Bee, Australian owned and designed prams combining quality, safety and style. Not only does Baby Bee let you try their prams at home with free returns for 9 months, yes, that's 9 months, they also offer an industry-leading 3-year warranty for total peace of mind. With thousands of 5-star reviews, around-the-clock customer care, and up to $300 of free accessories with every pram, what are you waiting for? Go visit www.babybeeonline.com and check them out for yourself. And yes, for listeners of the podcast, there is a 20% discount code. Enter FITBEE, FITBEE 20 at checkout, and T's and C's apply.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I think I was curious about when it would happen and what it would be like. But yeah, I think you're right in that I was probably less physically preparing in terms of, I'm not sure what I would exactly do, but I was really more mentally preparing. And I also knew it was kind of, my husband had been through births before, and he felt pretty confident that he could do whatever I needed to do. And so he didn't, I'm not sure how much, I don't know how much reflecting he did, but I knew that then I would have to kind of be in charge and like say what I wanted type thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what happened?
The births were much different. So that was a big surprise for me. So like my first 3 births, I think in looking back were more similar in terms of the process. So Cameron, he came 4 days early, which was typical. My first was 1 day late. My second was 11 days early. And then my third was 2 days late. And so he was 4 days early. My water broke first. So that had never happened before. My water breaking had always happened during labor, late in labor, to try to continue, to either the first two to kind of continue to speed things up after the epidural. For my third, I think it happened when I pushed her out. Yeah.
Okay. So on the morning was it the morning, like on the day that your waters broke, what time of day was it? What were you doing at the time?
Yeah. So it was American Thanksgiving. So it's like family holiday, and went to my brother's house for dinner. And, I felt a little bit different that day, a little bit. Like I remember having a period where I was just like leaning on the counter, just kind of feeling like interesting pressures in my body. It wasn't like a normal sensation I'd have. And so I was thinking, but at the same time, I was like, maybe that's just because I'm, getting close. I didn't know how imminent it was, I guess. And so we had a holiday and hung out with my family, and then came back. I went to bed at normal time, let's say 10:30, 10:45. And then I woke up suddenly. And at that point, I'd been sleeping in the basement on my own because I was just feeling pretty uncomfortable sleeping and moving around a lot. And so my husband's bedroom was on the top floor, and I was in the basement by myself. And so I was like, woke up really suddenly, like I had to go to the bathroom. And so I kind of rushed to the bathroom. And then I was so confused when I got there. Like I thought I'd peed my pants because I was so wet everywhere. I was like, what is going on? And it was just a fog. I was in a fog, having just fallen asleep and then waking up again. So it took me a few minutes to figure out what was going on. And so I had my phone. So I called my doctor, or I called the doctor line, and my doctor actually was on call. So she talked to her and told her what was happening. I felt like, I think my water broke, but I'm not sure. I think so. And then she agreed, and I had tested positive for group B strep. I don't know if you have that test that you do that in Australia. So she wanted me to come in pretty soon because she wanted to make sure I would get on the antibiotics. And with given my fourth, she didn't know how fast I would go. So I called my husband from the basement and upstairs, and no answer. Called me again. No answer. Like, what is going on? Apparently, when I called the first time, the phone was on vibrate and it fell behind the couch, and so he didn't hear it continuing to call. So I had to wrap a towel around me like a diaper and go up the stairs, because every time I moved, it was like leaking out. So it was quite the experience. So,
wow.
Yeah. And then headed into the hospital after what seemed like forever delay for his parents to come over and, watch our other kids who are sleeping. But
yeah. Okay. So you had to wait while parents arrived to look after the kids.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I started to feel contractions a little bit, but like in a huge contrast to my other births, like the drive to the hospital was actually fine. Like in my other births though, it was bad because I was like in pretty intense contractions, and for the first one throwing up and things like that. But for this, I was like a leisurely drive to the hospital. I felt totally like nothing was really happening. I felt some cramping, I would say more, but it wasn't strong. So got to the hospital, and right away, they didn't even need to check me because I was waddling in with my like diaper situation, and said, okay, we know what's happening here. And so got checked in, and my contractions they were happening, but they just weren't very strong. So we weren't sure what to do. I decided I wanted to try to get them going on my own. So by doing squatting and walking around. So this is probably like 2 a.m. now by the time we're all in there and checked in and had that assessment. And so I just walked and did squats for about 6 hours.
Wow.
And so that was exhausting, and nothing really, they were happening, I would say regularly, my contractions every 7 minutes or so, but they just weren't changing my cervix at all. I was like three and a half, and it wasn't changing. So then we decided to do Pitocin. So I had it augmented with that. And I just wanted to be sure. I was a little bit nervous about that because I had it before when I hadn't had an epidural for my second, but I had a plan to not have an epidural, and I wanted to get the baby out on my own. And so I was just a little bit uncertain about that and how it would feel. And they assured me they'd start really low, which they did. And then after an hour, it just seemed like it was working some, but I was still handling the contractions pretty easily. And so then they upped it a little bit more, and then things really started going. And so that was probably around 10 a.m. And then
Had you slept at all during the night?
I think I closed my eyes for like a half an hour. My husband tried to like sleep for like an hour, but that was really challenging because we really didn't sleep at all. And then having worked like squatted for like 6 hours, basically walking around.
Oh, did you try the fit ball, like bouncing on the fit ball, which is a bit more energy conserving rather than the squatting?
Tried that. Although, what was interesting, whenever I sat down, things would slow down.
Ah, right.
So that even in my labor, like I did take some rest on the ball for some contractions, but I felt that my contractions were less intense then. And so then it kind of motivated me to try to get back up, standing up and squatting on my own legs. And so the labor was probably I'm actually done marathons, and I ran when I was younger and did cross country skiing, like a lot of intense sports. And this labor was like my most athletic event ever. Like after like all that squatting and then the labor itself, I couldn't sit down really, because every time I sat down, I felt like things were slowing down. And so I was they had this apparatus thing that my husband could stand on, and I could hold it and kind of squat or work through a contraction that way. And then for a while I was putting my arms on the bed, like lowered the bed down, arms on the bed. And he would use a lot of counter pressure, like on my hips. My hips were just probably from all those squats on fire. Like I just was a lot of intense referral in my hips.
What was the sensations like during the contractions and during the surges? Like, were you feeling okay, or were you struggling at this point, or how are you managing mentally?
Yeah. So as I started getting, I think beyond 6, probably into 7 and centimeters, I definitely was getting much more intense. And I felt like I was doing one thing I was happy about how it all went is every contraction, I think I would start with more of a shrill kind of vocal movement. And then I would immediately try to bring it down to a really low tone. And that exercise of just bringing it down and like lowering my jaw and just feeling really like using my jaw to kind of visualize like opening up, I think in that lower tone really helped me gain control. Because I think every time the contraction would start, I would kind of be in this a little bit tense. I would tense up a little bit, and then but then that would cue myself to relax.
Oh,
and so that was really, really important, I think, for me to get through. And I also was extremely hot. Like I could have, if there would have been a bucket of water, I would have drowned myself. I was the hottest I've ever been in my life. I don't know. I've never had that sensation before. And so I was having like my husband, I was just like dousing myself with water, and I couldn't get enough cold water on me. And I would go to the bathroom, and then I go to the bathroom often. And I would run my whole arm underwater during the contraction. There's that really cold water. And that really helped just get through that period.
Yeah, right. Interesting. And when your body's running, at that sort of heat, it's also working extra hard too. So, and you're probably becoming dehydrated. Were you keeping the fluids up as much as you could?
Yeah, I think so. And I remember having a popsicle.
Oh,
like I just wanted something cold. Like I just was like, I could not get enough of cold. I did go in the shower at one point, but I don't know if that was earlier in the labor, but this was more when it was intense, just kind of getting as much sloppy cold water rags over my face, just kind of dousing myself.
Yeah.
And as I got closer to getting ready to push, I remember the sensation from my third, and I remember feeling what I would call like I feel the baby in my butt situation. Like that's why I was kind of looking for that feeling. And it wasn't really coming as fast. And I think it was because he's a bigger baby. And so I was kind of working the contractions through by pretty much laying on the bed, my torso, and then my husband would be pushing on my hips and just massaging them as hard as he could. And then the doctor, I was at 9.5, I think. And like my last little bit of cervix or whatever it's called didn't quite go, but the doctor said, well, let's just push. And she like moved it aside during one of my contractions. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And I think started pushing went into the bed and on my side, kind of pushing that for a little bit, but that wasn't super, I feel like I couldn't really get as much leverage. And I could feel like my son, it felt like a bowling ball going through my body. And so that was intense. And I actually felt a pop too, which I'll talk about later on the recovery. Felt a really large pop when I was pushing one time. So I didn't push for too long, maybe 8 or 9 contractions, maybe 10. And then I asked for a squat bar, and that's when I was able to push him out. But I think I was literally yelling when I was pushing. Like I've never tried something so hard in my life. Like I was pushing with every ounce of me to get him out. Mm-hmm. And I think he has really broad shoulders. And so his head was average, but it was really his shoulders, I think, that were causing problems because my daughter, who came third, she just shot out like a cannon. Like it was no problem. And so this was kind of surprising to me. I think I'm glad I didn't know he was a big baby. I had the assumption in my head that he would be the exact same size as my other kids. When he did come out, I guess his head came out first, and then it stopped. Like, so his shoulders were kind of stuck, but not in a bad, not in a, like I had to move positions. I had my doctor want me to lay down back quickly, lay down. And then she was able to finagle his shoulders to get him out. And then he came out.
Yeah, right. So was it a more time spent pushing for this birth?
My first 2, I spent more time pushing because I think first one was my first, but the second I only pushed a little bit, not very long at all. And he came out really easily. And the third, I pushed maybe 2 or 3 contractions, like not very much at all. This one, maybe I can't exactly remember how long. It was definitely longer. I really had to work to get him out. And I was surprised, given, 4th baby, I thought he'd slide right out.
And how did you feel when he came out?
I was exhausted. Like I looked at a video of it, which I was just like breathing. I just was like, it looked like I had just like run a marathon. Like my face was kind of like white, and like you could tell I was just totally fatigued.
Do you remember it?
I do remember it. I just remember being like, oh wow, like just so happy that it was done in terms of. But just so exhausted, I guess, because I hadn't, like I said, I hadn't slept. I'd been moving all night, and then the effort of pushing him out was exhausting. And
you knew he was a boy?
Not till he came out. That was the surprise.
Yeah, lovely. So you got 2 girls, 2 boys. Is that right?
No, 3 boys and 1 girl.
3 boys.
So boy,
girl,
boy.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So I want to find out about those moments afterwards, but just going back quickly to all the times when your husband was helping. I've been asking this question more. What was one of the most helpful things, one of the best things that your husband was doing to help you? What really stood out?
Right. What really has helped is a cold pop can or soda can. We call it pop in Minnesota. But rubbing that on like the right above my tailbone area, like right low back, rubbing that, and then having 2 so you can rotate in and out, like put one back in the fridge, take one back out. That's really helpful, I think, like in active labor, but not to the very end. It was just really providing like a really strong counter pressure and like digging into my hip flexors, side of my waist area and those muscles, and just really intense massage to try to like dissipate the contraction feeling.
Yeah, right. And is that something you learned in hypnobirthing? Was it?
No, I didn't take a birthing class, but we took a birth class for my first. And that's kind of something I just remember we did like an exercise where you have someone hold an ice cube in your hand and you try to distract them kind of thing. So and then we had learned with my first about just this, for me, that's having that counter pressure to meet the intensity of the contraction with another sensation helps.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so your little baby boy was born. You're happy and relieved it's all over. What happened in those first few hours?
Trying to get him breastfeeding. That was a priority for me. Trying to get some skin to skin, eating a huge meal. I was so hungry. We were both starving, husband and I. But yeah, we all in the US, I don't know how it is there, but you have an option to do like a bath, but I delayed the bath, or at least I tried to delay it as much as I could, although he definitely needed a cleaning. And just getting him on me and trying to establish the breastfeeding, I guess, was the most important thing. And then what was different this time was the COVID situation in terms of the nurseries closed. And so couldn't have that time to recover. So that was really hard. Felt like it was much harder to recover after the birth. And I really needed it this time with not sleeping. So that was a hard situation.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you find the breastfeeding fourth time round?
We struggled a little bit in that he had a stridor. I don't know if they know what that term, you know what that term is, but he had a kind of a squeaky breathing and eating. And it kind of was like, like that situation, like a soft palate, I would say. And so that didn't really present itself until after we were home for a week or two. And then I kind of noticed it. And he also has kind of a tight mouth, I would say. He doesn't open his mouth very large. He's tongue-tied for one as well. And then I did go to a lactation person. So I did a couple, again, it was COVID. So we did some online consults and finally got it in person. And she had mentioned that he just has some tightness in his mouth, just the way his mouth is. And so he was gaining enough weight though. And I wasn't really having too much problems in terms of my nipples were probably had been through it before. So they were not so sensitive, but yeah, we were managing, he was gaining weight. So I wasn't overly concerned by it. And we, at one point thought I took him to a dentist or to see if he should be, not dentist, but like an oral, like an ear, nose and throat type doctor, and to see if he should be changed at all. But I just decided not to because he was gaining weight. And I have another son who's tongue tied, and I felt like that's just part of who he is, and he didn't need to. So maybe it sounds silly, but I just was like, well, let's just keep doing it, what we're doing. Yeah. I mean, I think the hardest part for me was my like that popping sensation, like I mentioned. It did a big number on my tailbone area. It was just so hard. All the muscles, like to stand and sit, like that pressure to stand up was really, really painful. And so
was that pop around the tailbone area?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't pinpoint exactly where it was, but that's what it felt like.
Because I thought initially when you were talking about the pop, I thought you were referring to a levator avulsion, but it sounds, like it wasn't that. So how long were you in really bad pain for quite a while?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, the most I'd been, the other two I had pain, but it felt in that situation more bruising. This felt more like muscle, like I'd been misaligned, and then my muscles were all trying to compensate for it, felt like. And with and that was going into Christmas. And so, I mean, I talked to my doctor on the phone, but I didn't go to my chiropractor. I probably should have gone in earlier. I finally did go in, and he was like, you're basically unadjusted yourself during delivery, and you've been that way the whole time since. And so he helped me adjust back. And then I started going to a physical therapist for pelvic floor, actually based on what recommendations I've heard from you, and then also other podcasts, The Kick. So, and then I went for that for over several weeks and months, doing exercises and things like that. So it did resolve itself probably 4 months after I finally felt better.
Okay.
But even if I leaned back, then I could feel it. It doesn't, not anymore, but for a long time.
Yeah, right. And how's the pelvic floor recovery been?
Pretty good, I think. But I've had to work on it. Like, I didn't really know there was a pelvic floor specialist until this connecting with FitNest. And so I felt like I didn't know like all the sensate, like going to the pelvic floor specialist has helped me better understand all the range of muscles in the pelvic floor. So, and then I need to keep practicing because I can tell if I don't, I can tell.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's good to know. I think after any vaginal birth, and then especially after 4, it's good that you are focusing on like with the tailbone, the core and the pelvic floor, all that area. So you're doing an amazing job with your recovery. How old is Cameron now?
He's 7 months.
Yeah. And how did your older siblings, how did the older siblings adjust to having a new little baby in the house?
Yeah, they were excited, but then it's challenging, right? Especially initially because they mostly just eat and sleep and, they require a lot of mom's attention. So the older two handled it very well. My 6-year-old had some challenges, especially in the evening when she was tired from school. And that's also when Cameron was fussy. He definitely had the typical fussy time period, 6-7 weeks. He was really fussy in the evenings, and that lasted for a while. But then now it's got, once he started being more interactive, and that was much after about 2.5 months, then he's doing a lot more and interacting a lot more. And so every week and month he's more interactive. So they're really having fun with him.
And especially at this age of 7 months, is he starting to trying to crawl and wriggling around the mat?
Yeah, exactly. He's still sitting and he'll reach for things, like he's trying to get him. So, and yes, he's very, very, he has a lot of movement. He loves a little jumper right now. He likes to jump. So yeah.
And are you feeling like your family is complete?
Yeah, I do. I often just am amazed that we are a family of 4, because I felt like it for a while that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
amazing.
and then, it was he's definitely a gift, and he's a very smiley baby. So, and he loves his dad, so that worked out.
And I'd just love to know as well, what made you join FitNest Mama, and how did you find the program helped you during your pregnancy and birth and recovery?
I just love how I just love the focus of it. I just love how it's something that I hadn't really seen before in terms of really focusing so explicitly on the pelvic floor and kind of preparation and recovery. I felt like I'd been in kind of prenatal yoga classes and things, and they would mention pelvic exercises, but I felt like I didn't fully really understand the importance enough and what it was really like. And so I just loved how the dedicated focus on that is like just a core part of preparing for childbirth and recovery and just being female as well. So I think that's the part. And I think it's been fun to, get to know you and to see your work.
Yeah, amazing. So for any pregnant women listening today or new mums, I don't think asked you. I don't think I mentioned that I'd asked you this question, so I'm sort of putting you on the spot. But what final words of wisdom or any piece of advice do you have for pregnant or new mums listening today?
I would say just trust yourself. Trust yourself in terms of what you want, what you need. Be your own advocate, and be your own champion, because if no one, you can make things happen more than anyone else for yourself. So I think that's what I would say. I think this whole, Cameron, and it's all about me kind of advocating for myself and what I really wanted. So I think that's what I remember for him.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Colleen. I feel honoured to have been able to chat to you today about your story. Totally unique and wonderful in every way, and well done.
Thank you.
We'll catch you soon. So before I sign off, I just wanted to talk you through my main takeaway from that episode with Colleen today. Colleen, during labour, she tried lots of different positions. She tried lots of different strategies. So she found, for example, when she was lying on the bed, she found that wasn't comfortable and she tried something different. And that was my biggest take-home message, was she didn't just accept or get into one position and stick with it. She was really fluid and was happy to try different things during the birth of her baby. So that's it, ladies. My team and I will be putting together the show notes for this episode with all the links, including how to access a free 5-day trial. Head to fitnessmama.com/podcast. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful episode with Colleen today. That's it. Have a fabulous day, everyone, and I look forward to you joining me next week for another episode of the FitNest Mama podcast. Thanks for listening to the FitNest Mama podcast, brought to you by the FitNest Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at FitNest Mama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer: materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I'll see you soon.